Welcome back to the Cultural Curriculum Chat podcast, where we explore culture, identity, leadership, and real human stories that shape how we show up in the world. Today's conversation is one I've been really looking forward to because we're going beyond buzzwords and into the emotional reality of inclusion work. My guest today is Matthias Biehl, who has spent the last 8 years working at the intersection of inclusion, diversity, and organizational culture. His work focuses on how bias, power, and belonging actually show up in everyday work, not just in theory, but in lived, sometimes uncomfortable practice. Matthias also brings a perspective of a solo founder, exploring how intentional design and technology can help people connect beyond their usual silos, especially in these polarizing times. We talk honestly about empathy, psychological safety, performative DE&I work, and what leaders often get wrong when they think inclusion is quote unquote soft. So, Matthias, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, and thank you so much for this wonderful intro. How great
Oh,
was
I
I'm
thank you, my dear.
double excited to be here.
Oh, thank you, thank you. You know, I had to do my research. When you reached out to me a few weeks ago, I was like, "Ooh, I am so excited, especially organizational culture." You had me
Yeah.
at performative DE&I. I said, "Yes, we can really get into it."
Yes.
And yeah, yeah, I'm so thrilled to have you on. And listeners, Matthias is beaming in from Germany. So another international interview up my sleeve. So I'm so excited to have you here.
I'm so excited.
Oh, thank you. So let's get into it. You've spent years working on inclusion and culture, and I want you to kind of help our listeners and viewers on the YouTube channel. What do most organizations still get wrong when it comes to empathy?
I have 2 thoughts on this, and I'm very excited to see, and hear what your point of view on this is as well. Um, we've already kind of alluded to it in the intro, and that is that empathy is a soft skill. And while it may be soft if you compare it to the hard skill set, it is an essential skill in the sense that it will equip you to navigate tough times. And especially at the moment, I'm seeing this in a lot of leadership situations that leaders that do not put a focus on empathy and emotional intelligence in their top management areas, that they have a tougher time navigating crisis and geopolitical uncertainty. Because if you put a focus on that and you make yourself part of the team as a leader, and you put emotional intelligence and empathy work first, you will be better equipped to navigate these challenges. So I think it is a soft skill compared to hard skills when we think of this kind of separation, but it is definitely a skill that should never be disregarded just because it is soft by definition. So that is the first thing that is always kind of misunderstood, I believe, in top management areas. And another thing, and I love this one because I'm always down to have a very not heated discussion, but a very direct discussion about this one. I love when someone in top management or in a leadership position says to me, I'm just not empathetic. That's
Mm.
just not who I am. That's just not how I lead. That's just how it is. I love when someone says this because it opens up a great opportunity to have a very intense but important discussion. And that is empathy is not a trait that is assigned or given, and you either have it or you don't have it. I personally believe that empathy is a muscle you can train. So everyone has the opportunity and the potential to be empathetic. And if you focus on working on that skill, you can definitely develop it. So if you just dismiss it because you say, that's just not me, that's just not how I lead, then I think you're just taking the easy way out.
Mm,
I love when someone gives me that opportunity to potentially shift their point of view when it comes to that. So those two, I think, the soft skill discussion and dismissing empathy because it is considered soft, and also the whole I'm not empathetic, so I'm dismissing it. Those two are big misconceptions I always encounter, but I do love a good challenge. So when these come up, I'm well equipped to have
oh, yeah.
those difficult conversations.
Oh, I love that. And I like how you even touched on, Matthias, that, well, I don't have it, so therefore it's not a priority. We don't do
Mm,
things like that. I've heard
yeah,
that also in organizational spaces when I did some work. And
yeah,
like you said, I love how you said it's a muscle that you have to tone, you have to
mm,
build, especially in this geopolitical climate we have. To have the human and human resources. We are a human workforce. You have
yeah,
to have that part of
absolutely.
you, to see each other as humanity as it is,
Yeah,
versus something so robotic and, oh, that's not how we do things. But then when crises awry,
yeah,
then they have that panic. What are we gonna do? This hasn't happened before. Have you heard that, that excuse? Like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah. Ah,
not at this, not at this company. We've done this way for how many years? Or, oh, that person's retired. We don't need to worry about that anymore. But
mm,
like you said, that soft skill, there's nothing about thinking that soft is less than. You need to have,
yeah,
I feel like it should be turned into, and you can probably, if there's a different term, you can definitely jump in, but like a life skill, because when we
mhm,
think of soft, we just kind of think, oh, it's dainty, it's not, it's not courageous. And I feel like when you
yeah,
have that life skill, we all need to practice that. Yeah. What are your
yeah,
thoughts on it?
yeah,
Yeah.
certainly. And there's potentially a conversation to be had why we always dismiss the soft skills because
Yes.
something soft is not necessarily something negative. I think we've been so guided towards you have to be harsh, you have to be tough to be successful, especially in a very competitive business situation. We've been conditioned to believe that that is the only way, that you have
Mhm.
to elbow your way to the top. And maybe there's room to reconsider if that is the only way. Maybe there
Yeah.
is other ways, maybe there is collaborative ways, maybe there is
Yeah.
ways to get to the top and still being an empathetic leader that puts soft
Mhm.
skills, assigns the same worth to soft skills as they do to the hard ones. And maybe eventually the perception will shift. So that would be
Oh,
something to maybe consider. That is certainly the hope that I have for whatever is next and the way that my career or the things that I do develop, that I can get to these places while being empathetic and caring about other humans and their circumstances and not applying the elbow strategy.
exactly. Yes. Leave the elbows, highly moisturized and, ready to
Yeah.
just walk alongside you. I love it. I
Yeah.
love it. So, Matthias, how has your lived experience shaped the way you understand bias, power, and belonging? We talked about empathy, but those hard elbows, punching and getting through, that has a lot to do with bias and power and who
Yeah.
belongs in these spaces. So, how has your lived experience in your journey shaped the way you understand those terms?
Yeah. And I'll take that opportunity to take a couple of steps back and kind of outline a little bit where I'm personally coming from, because the way that I see these things and the reason why I'm so intrinsically motivated to work on these things and bring change to the workplace and to, with my startup, even people's personal lives, is heavily shaped by where I come from and where I started. So I grew up in a very rural area of Germany in the south, and I was a brown kid in a fully white community with also white parents because I'm an adopted child. So just being the adopted child in a little village, I was already sticking out, you know, um, and already met with a lot of judgment and bias because people in these rural communities assign certain attributes to the way that people look. So that was the starting circumstance. And in my teenage years, I eventually found out that I'm also part of the queer community. And then I added that on top of that. And you can imagine being a teenager, I was thinking, oh boy, is that necessary to add another thing? Being in
Mhm.
the countryside, the brown kid, and now also part of that community. Could I have not chosen a path that is a little bit easier for myself? But it wasn't a choice, and so I had to simply adjust. And eventually, I turned that into my strength. So there is a very happy ending to that part of my life. But that is where the intrinsic motivation, of course, stems from. So I've always had an interest in the betterment for the situation of the people that I consider part of my community. And when I landed my first full-time job in an enterprise setting, and learned about employee resource groups and the work that ERGs do inside of companies, I was instantly hooked and interested to be part of that. So that's how it all kind of came to be. Also, a little bit selfishly motivated at the beginning. You know, I wanted to look out for myself a little bit in this
Yes.
corporate setting. So
Love it.
that's kind of where it started. And then transitioning to the company that I'm currently at, it was a newly formed company as part of a split off from a larger corporation. So when I joined, it was really like nothing was there for the ERGs. So it was all a unwritten book. And I was approached and asked if I could see myself being a chair for one of the ERGs. And I said, that's great. Now I can form this exactly how I imagine it should be. And later on, because apparently I did some decent work, I was asked if I could see myself leading all of the ERGs under one umbrella for this particular market in Germany. And I thought, what a great opportunity, because along the journey, I had already realized this is not just about my community. All other communities of marginalized groups, they face very similar situations, and we're all kind of looking for similar things, maybe basic human rights or constitutional protection or being tolerated and celebrated for who we are. We're all kind of looking for the same thing.
Yeah.
So just fighting for one group already kind of didn't make sense to me. So being able to support and strategically lead multiple groups forward seemed like a wonderful opportunity. So I took up on that opportunity, and for the last 2 years, we've done some incredible work, professionalizing everything that we do inside of those ERGs and working under one umbrella with the ERGs that we have here, which is very unique for this market. We don't really do this in other markets. And I can tell you, there is so much strength in community and so much
Mm.
opportunity in bringing people together that are all intrinsically motivated and to not separate ourselves, especially when we are coming from groups that are facing a lot of challenge from the general public. So I found a lot of joy in bringing all these groups together. And also, there's a lot of intersectionality, which is another huge topic. Most people are not this or that, they are
Mm.
a multitude of things. So drawing
Yes.
lines between different groups is not really sensical in most situations, anyways. So that's kind of how it all came to be. A bit of a long story.
I
Uh,
love it. I love it. Yes.
And along those lines, I learned a lot, of course, about bias and prejudice and the way that the human brain also works and how we love to assign things and put people into boxes, and how that helps us navigate everyday life, but how it may hurt the people that are being boxed. And got a lot of opportunity to educate leadership about that as well. Um, Open those doors and those minds up to those ideas, and um, shape the culture in this also newly formed company. And yeah, very much positioned myself as the person that is at the forefront of these things. And I've really come to love it. It's a great privilege. Um, and it's also a great place to do it. So I am given a lot of room to focus on this kind of work. So,
I love it. I love it. And I know younger Matthias would be so proud,
oh,
just I'm telling you, growing up as a, adoptee and, in the queer community
yeah,
and in a rural area, and just now you are in charge of these ERGs, employee resource groups that come together in community. I love that. We're
yeah,
not siphoning each other off, because every human being has multiple identities that they
yeah,
carry, and to have that safe belonging space for everybody to be who they authentically are. That's just
yeah,
amazing, Matthias. Thank you for sharing that, and also sharing the blueprint of what you have done in your organization, working
yeah.
together and getting them all under the same umbrella to
Hmm.
forge ahead of what you see in the corporate, structure that needs to
Yeah.
be, disrupted and also reimagined and
Hmm.
realigned, I think is the term I would definitely use. And with that, because I'm telling you, to be at the top and in stewarding all these other ERGs, there's a lot of emotional labor, of a,
Yeah.
African hetero woman, in America. There's a lot of emotional labor of inclusion at work. We're trying to get our tasks and objectives done. We're trying to, go home to our families or our other
Yeah.
life outside of work. But can you also, you know, touch on that emotional labor? Because there's a lot of costs, especially with our mental health, when we're dealing
Yeah.
with the biases that people bring with them in the workplace. Yeah.
There is definitely a lot of emotional labor involved. And I will say for the most part, it is labor that is to me personally very much worth it because I know what I'm fighting for. But I will always acknowledge that it may not be for everyone because it is a lot of emotional work. And I think, especially for people that are not aligning themselves with the marginalized group, I think there's a lot of opportunity to build understanding and seeing that emotional labor is involved. And I never mean that in an accusatory way, because if you have never found yourself in a situation like this because you don't align yourself with a marginalized group, that is a privilege. And not being informed to an extent where you already have that understanding is acceptable. And when I share about this, I never mean it in an accusatory way. I'm always just looking to build understanding um,
Yeah.
from the other party. So when I tell people, for example, um, when I choose where I want to travel for my next vacation, I do have to do a lot of extra research because people from my community are not welcomed everywhere.
Mm.
And to some people, that is a very foreign concept because they don't have to think about these things. Or when the next governmental cycle comes around, if you are, if the way you live is never has never been politicized or will not ever be politicized, that is a great privilege to have and something that many marginalized communities don't know this kind of
Mm.
security. They don't know that. And th- that we have to keep showing up and that we have to keep doing the work. And especially this year at Pride, we were reminded that it is a celebration, but it's also a protest. That was made very, very clear once more this year.
Yes.
Um, that is something that I need people to understand. And that goes along with heavy emotional labor that is involved also, I mean, in my private life to an extent, but also in um, a professional setting when it comes to ERGs. And one example that I can give
Yeah.
is I don't think that people are probably never doing this on purpose, but we are, for example, still struggling sometimes with attendance. You know, we are a huge corporation. And when we put these things out into the open, we're inviting people to maybe a web session to inform a larger group about something, or if it may be an in-person event, or if we're doing any other kind of activity, um, showing up is a very easy way to support. And when we put these things into the world and we're always sitting there with the same 10 people, um, and we're really fighting for something that is very close and dear to us, incredibly personal,
Yeah.
then that can be a little bit heavy, you know?
Yes, for
Um,
sure.
just to give you an example of a
Mhm.
professional, situation. So to anyone potentially listening who, does not align themselves with a community, but thinks of themselves as an ally, the best thing truly to do in these times and any times is to show up, speak up, and stand up for, um, the communities that you want to support, because we can really need it at the moment. So, yeah, that is
I
something,
love
you know,
that. Yeah.
emotional labor goes
And
along with.
and it goes a long way, and thank you for also reminding our listeners that if you are a member of the marginalized communities that we talked about, there's a lot more research when we are living our day-to-day lives, It's more than just
Yeah.
punching in a clock. It's okay. I gotta make sure my, young African American son is at from point A to
Absolutely.
point B, or
Yeah,
like you said, on vacation. Where's a spot that I feel safe and that a community
yes.
that will find me will be a helper if I need help. Those are
Yeah,
a lot of things. And like, I love how you said too, as an ally, yeah, speak up, show up, say something. Just
mhm,
because you don't belong to that group, you can always align yourself with that group to say, I'm
yeah,
here for you. And like you said, that attendance, so many of us here in the States are like, oh, I don't belong to that group, so I'm not going to go to that Juneteenth festival or that Pride parade. And
yeah,
it's like, well, it's also our resistance. It's all of our look how far we've come and the fight we're still trying to move forward with. And
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
And
mhm.
and the thing is we have made a lot of for the most marginalized groups, there has been a lot of progress over the last decade or 2
Yes,
decades. But unfortunately, for this celebration, when you've won a lot, there's also a lot to lose. And again,
yes,
like these rights and these protections are not set in stone for these groups. So as soon as the celebration is over, we have to go out there and make sure that we retain the things we were granted. And again, this is never meant in an accusatory way, but this is simply something that a person that has never had to deal with these challenges, it's probably difficult to understand. So,
yeah.
yeah.
And again, I always say too in my practice, it could be, yeah, it is difficult to understand, but when I
Yeah.
tell you, believe me. Don't
Yeah.
dismiss my
Yes.
experience. It's
Oh,
like, what about
100%.
this? And they try to hypothesize and put another vignette. It's like,
Mhm.
when I say it, believe me
Oh,
the first time,
absolutely. Yeah.
You
Believe me
hear
the
that.
first time. Yeah.
Believe me the
Agreed.
first time. Oh man, Matthias, this is so good. So here's another question that, we talk about, empathy, belonging, all the things. What is one example of an uncomfortable truth about workplace culture that leaders really need to hear right now? Just give them one uncomfortable truth that they still need to get. Yeah,
Oh,
I know there's a lot,
I
but just
can
pick one.
Tim, I can tell you I've had a couple of uncomfortable conversations about this one that I'm about to share, and not only with leaders, but also with friends and family in some capacity. And maybe even some people of the community would see this as a controversial take. Sorry. And now I've teased it, I've built enough suspense to finally say it.
I'm ready.
um,
I'm ready.
but my take is that allyship is not like a loyalty card. It may be granted, but it is not granted without any further notice. It is something that you have to keep doing. You have to keep showing up, especially for those communities during the tough times. It's so easy to be on a winning team. It's so easy to be there when the times are great, when we're all just celebrating and having a fun time. But in the tough times, that is when you have to get out there and renew the allyship
Renew that.
that
Renew the
you
allyship
promised.
membership. I love it. Yes.
100%. And that is because also with top management, when these conversations shift in the general public and statements get more dangerous, if you will, and
Mhm.
having a very firm opinion on things is all of a sudden risky. Um, Especially then, does the allyship you've shown in the past not count as much as it would if you kept it up right now? Because if, and I'm sorry to say this, and again, controversial potentially, but allyship that does not show up in the hard times to me is very performative. So for real, authentic allyship, you have to stand with the communities during the tough times. So it's not a loyalty card that is given to you and then it's yours forever to keep. It's
Mm.
making a choice day by day to keep standing with the community. And once again, kind of in the same sense as it is with empathy, it's also a muscle you can train. The more you put your allyship forward, the easier it will get and the more natural it will feel for you to speak up in these situations when the people that need your allyship are not in the room. Then it will get easier to speak up. If you've done it a couple of times, you will already have the counter arguments in your head if someone says something that's out of line. So the more you do it, the easier it will become. So
I
yeah.
love that. I love that. It is a membership card, but it can be revoked if you don't
Oh yes, and the
keep.
communities may
Yes,
do that if
they
you're not
may do
careful.
that if you're not careful. But again, you have to work that muscle of speaking up,
Mhm.
saying the right, being there in those spaces where other groups aren't in. That's when you show your
Yes,
courage, when people,
especially
yeah,
that. And I mean,
especially then.
it's
Hmm.
already worth something if you do it when I'm also in the room, but if
Yes.
you do it while I'm not there and people talk in a negative or in a harmful way, especially then is it
The
wonderful to
time. Yes, I love that. Oh, Matthias, where can our listeners of the podcast find you and your amazing work, especially learning more about your blueprint on how to effectively use empathy and compassion in your ERGs? Where can they find your work?
yeah, the best place to see what I'm up to and the hot takes that I deliver, as in allyship is not a loyalty card. You can
Mhm.
find those on my LinkedIn. I do share a lot of the work that we do in the corporate setting and a lot of the work that I also do outside of of the corporate settings. So that is the best place to, yeah, keep up with the things
Okay.
that I'm involved in.
Oh, I love that. And also on Pool Match, correct? .com. Is that another one?
Yes. So, um, just a quick, maybe two sentences about this. All of the empathy work I've done inside of my corporate setting, I wanted to find a way to carry that into the general population. And Pool Match is a very simple online service where you sign up and then you receive a random person into your inbox month after month and a conversation topic. And then you are able to reach out to this person and have a conversation And the idea is that they are from a completely different place, potentially a completely different corner of life. And that through the randomness in connecting and this person being outside of your usual bubble, that there's a lot of growth potential to see how do other people live their lives? What other experiences have these people had? And while we may look or sound or dress very differently, when we have this heartfelt conversation based on the conversation topic provided, maybe we're not that different after all. So that's kind of what it's trying to deliver, a very, very small service, but I'm hoping, if enough people from many, many different places sign up and join the pool, that we really can then spark some wonderful conversations, hopefully eye-opening and horizon broadening.
I love that. I love that, Matthias. And the human connection, it all
Yeah.
boils down to human
E
connection.
exactly.
You know, what we believe, don't believe, but just having these courageous conversations and aligning each other more in community. That's what it's all about. Matthias, I'll have all your information in the show notes. Thank you for this grounding and honest conversation. And thank you too, Matthias, for naming what so many people feel but rarely say out loud because of that fear of being that,
Mm.
that that cultural ally, but not knowing where to begin and not knowing how to continue to practice it. So, for listeners who want to continue this work of expanding our empathy and belonging and stepping outside of our bubbles, Matthias is going to, of course, have in our show notes the pool match platform that he just mentioned and how we can continue to connect. And as always, if this episode has resonated with you, please share it with a colleague, a leader, or someone who is navigating culture and change alongside you. And I'll see you here same time next week.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much for having
Thank
me.
you.